Hello, and welcome back to Horror Drift Stories. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading them. If you enjoy drifting into dark and unsettling stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, get comfortable, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1. Before I say anything, I need you to understand something. I am not insane. My mind is clear. I know who I am. I know what I saw. I know what I did. For 20 years, I was a cop. I started as a rookie in uniform, taking noise complaints and writing parking tickets. I worked nights, holidays, double shifts. I chased promotions like my life depended on it. I finally made lead detective because I was good at what I did and because I wanted to be the best. I've seen horrible things. I've seen what people do to each other. I never broke. I never snapped. I am not crazy. What I am is a man who made a mistake. A big one. A mistake that started as a small choice, then grew and grew until it wrapped around my throat and wouldn't let go. I should never have started digging this deep. I should never have let pride and curiosity win over common sense. I should have walked away. 6 months before my retirement, someone dropped a photo on my desk. It was a school picture, 2nd grade, little Kaylee Everson. She was smiling with a crooked, missing tooth grin. Her dirty blonde hair had been curled like she was in a pageant. She wore a light purple sundress and a bright red bow on top of her head. She looked sweet, real, like the kind of kid who still hugged her mom in public. My partner, Detective John Ripley, leaned on the edge of my desk and rubbed his bald head. "We got a sad one today, champ," he said, in that tired, half-joking voice he used when he didn't want to show how much something bothered him. I tapped ash off my cigarette into my full ashtray. "When are they not, Ripley?" But even as I said it, I could see in his eyes this one was different. He didn't even need to say it. It was in the way he sat, the way he breathed. He told me. "CCTV picked this little girl up outside the corner store on Carter Street," he said. "She's in pajamas, no coat, looks confused as hell, like she doesn't know where she is." I sat there thinking, choosing my words slowly. "Do we have the tape here?" I asked. "I need to see it." He nodded, reached into his suit jacket, and pulled out a VHS tape. I still kept an old VHS player in my office for this kind of thing. Security cameras in the older parts of town were still using them. He pushed the tape in, hit play. We both leaned closer to the screen. The footage was grainy, low quality, but I saw what he meant almost right away. Kaylee stepped into the frame like she'd just appeared out of thin air. Her hair was messy now. She was barefoot. She had pajama pants and a t-shirt on, not that sundress. Her eyes darted around, left, right, up at the store windows, down the street. She turned in a small circle like she was trying to recognize something, anything. She looked lost, confused, scared. The time in the corner of the screen read 3:18 a.m. That was the part that chilled me. No adult in sight, no parent walking her, no car pulling away. Just a little girl alone in the middle of the night in front of a cheap corner store in one of the worst parts of town. We watched in silence. At 3:25 a.m., something changed. Kaylee suddenly snapped her head toward the tree line behind the store. Her whole body stiffened. It was like she'd heard someone call her name. Slowly, very slowly, she turned and started walking off frame, toward the woods. She didn't run. She didn't hesitate. she just walked out of sight. That was the last time anyone saw her. Her parents were wrecked. The school put up candles and photos and held a vigil. Bring Kaylee home signs went up around town. Ripley clicked the tape off and ejected it. We both sat there, staring at nothing, trying to decide our next move. For me, it was obvious. We're going to that store, I said. He didn't argue. We drove to Carter Street in silence. It was in a rough area. Cheap apartments, broken windows, bars on doors. Not the kind of place you expect a second grader from a middle-class neighborhood to show up. The parking lot outside the store was full of people when we got there. Car doors slamming, kids shouting, music blasting from speakers. It felt wrong. Like the world shouldn't keep spinning normally when a kid had vanished right here. We flashed our badges. That cleared the lot in minutes. Inside, we tried to work, but the store owner wouldn't stop hovering around us. Is the girl okay? How long is this going to take? Are you coming back tomorrow? I can't scare my customers away every day, you know. On and on. We told him politely we needed some space and stepped outside to smoke. I stood there, trying to let the nicotine calm me, when something red caught my eye near the edge of my vision. It was stuck in the metal downspout on the side of the building. A small, bright red shape jammed into the opening. It popped out against the dirty metal. I dropped my cigarette, crushed it under my shoe, and walked over. The closer I got, the tighter my stomach knotted, and I reached in and pulled it out. It was a small red bow. I heard Ripley's breath catch behind me. That's not, he started. I think it is, I said. Taped to the bow with a little wooden clothespin was a note. The paper was small and clean. The letters were neat, almost careful. Do not look for me. The handwriting was wrong. It wasn't a child's. It didn't look like it belonged to any second grader. My skin crawled. Ripley called it in. Within an hour, the parking lot and the street were full of squad cars, flashing lights, search teams, uniforms, dogs. They had already been searching all over town, but now everyone focused here. We went over every inch of the property, the dumpsters, the fence, the woods behind the store. People with flashlights and cameras and markers. People on their hands and knees, checking dirt and grass. We found nothing else. By early morning, most of the teams left to rest and reorganize. The sun came up weak and pale. I was the last one still there, standing in the cold, feeling empty. I finally decided to go home. A detective who can't think straight is useless. If Kaylee was still alive, she didn't need a useless detective. The drive home felt like it lasted hours and seconds at the same time. My hands were on the wheel, but my mind was stuck on her face, on that bow, on that note. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I barely remembered the trip. I stumbled straight into bed and crashed, face first. No dreams, just dark. I woke up to knocking, hard, quick pounding on my front door. I looked at the clock. 9 a.m. My body hurt. My eyes burned. I dragged myself to the door and looked through the peephole. Nobody. I opened the door, and there was a box sitting neatly in the middle of my welcome mat. Plain brown cardboard. No labels. No writing. No company name. I hadn't ordered anything. I hadn't done any online shopping. I barely knew how. The box was light. Less than a pound, I guessed. Every part of me told me this was about Kaylee. I didn't open it. I didn't want to touch it more than I had to. I put it in the trunk of my car and drove toward the station. On the way, anxiety started chewing at me. Who put it there? Had they followed me home from Carter Street? From the station? How long had someone been watching me? Then, sitting at a red light, I heard it. Tick, 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 faint, coming from the trunk. My skin went cold. My brain filled with just one thought. Bomb. I changed routes. I pulled into a nearly empty parking garage on the edge of downtown. No people. No cars near me. I called the bomb squad. I told them everything. The missing girl, the bow, the note, the box, the ticking. They told me to get far away from the vehicle and wait. 10 minutes later, they rolled in. Quiet. No sirens. Trying not to cause panic. I watched from behind a concrete pillar as a man in the thick suit walked toward my car. Every step looked heavy. His visor glinted under the fluorescent garage lights. He opened my trunk. He stared down at the box. He cut the tape and lifted the lid. Silence. Then he jerked back with a choked shout. "It's a finger," he yelled. "Small one. Looks like it was wired to some kind of timer." I felt the world tilt. I couldn't breathe. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. Everything around me sounded far away, like I was underwater. My co-workers hurried in, talking fast, passing the box to gloved hands, rushing it to a van. They said things to me, told me protocol, next steps, what they were doing. I nodded at the right times, but I don't remember what I said back. It all blurred. They took the box to the lab. They took the timer, the packaging, the small finger that looked like it belonged to a child. I went back to my office and sat alone with my thoughts. The ticking sound of the cheap clock on my wall made me feel like I was going to snap. So I got up, yanked it down, and pulled the batteries out. The silence after that was even worse. All that was left to work with was the tape. So I watched it again. I rewound to the beginning, pressed play, watched Kaylee wander into frame, watched her turn in a circle, watched her stand there, lost, in her pajamas at 3 a.m, and I watched her snap her head toward the trees at the back of the lot. I watched her walk toward them. I rewound it. Again, again, again. On the 5th time, I saw him, a shape at the very edge of the frame, half hidden behind a tree on the tree line. Almost just a shadow at first. But then he moved. He lifted an arm and made a small motion, a wave, a come here gesture, the kind an adult uses when calling a child over. I knew that wave. I'd used it on my own daughter years ago, at parks, at stores. I leaned closer. My heart hammered. I froze the frame. The figure was small, grainy, but I could see a face now. Same jawline, same nose, same tired eyes, same lines on the forehead, same graying hair at the temples. It was me, my own face, looking out from that black and white security footage, standing beneath the trees behind the store. I told myself it was a trick of the eyes. Old footage, someone who looked like me, a glitch on the tape, anything. I rewound. I watched it again, and again. 7 times total. Each time I saw more clearly. Each time, the features were unmistakable. It was like the image sharpened with every denial I tried to build. There I was, on tape. At 3:25 a.m., beckoning Kaylee into the dark. My stomach dropped. My brain screamed at me that this was impossible. I was in bed at that time. I was home. I knew where I'd been. Didn't I? I was staring at the frozen frame when the office door flew open. I jumped and smashed my hand down on the eject button. Ripley rushed in, slightly out of breath. "You ever heard of knocking?" I snapped, trying to cover my panic. He ignored the tone. His face was pale, serious. Positive match on the finger. he said. It's Kaylee's. I told her parents. The search teams are switching to body recovery. Whoever is doing this is playing some kind of sick game. But we've seen worse games. We'll handle it. I pressed a hand to my forehead. My mind raced. The tape felt heavy in my other hand. If I told him what I'd seen, he'd think I'd lost it. He'd have me pulled from the case, maybe tested for drugs, maybe worse. A cop who sees himself kidnapping a girl, they wouldn't let that go. But if I didn't tell him, and someone else found the same thing later, I'd look guilty. I'd look like I'd hidden evidence. I asked myself which was worse, being seen as crazy or being seen as a monster. I didn't answer out loud. Instead, I said, "We're prepared for anything, John. Did you get any prints off the box?" He shook his head. Nothing. Clean. Whoever sent it knew what they were doing. He sighed and rubbed his face. We're throwing everything we've got at this, man. I'm praying something breaks. I hope you are too. I'm praying, I said. It wasn't a lie. I just didn't say what I was praying for. When he left, the silence came back. Heavy. Thick. I sat there with the tape in my hand, feeling like it was burning my skin, and I started to realize something. I was lying. To my partner. To my department. To myself. That tape was evidence, and I was hiding it in my desk drawer like some guilty rookie. I couldn't bring myself to put it back in the office cabinet. I couldn't leave it where anyone might pull it and see what I'd seen. So I took it home. I called in sick the next day, and the day after, and the day after that. 20 years with almost perfect attendance gave me that tiny bit of slack. No one pushed too hard, not at first. They just said, "Rest up, we've got it here." They didn't have it. I knew that. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and the tape beside me, and I started digging into Kaylee online. There wasn't much. She was 8 years old. Her family was normal. Her parents both worked and posted family photos every now and then. No arrests, no obvious weird connections. I checked school websites, PTA pages, teacher reviews. I found out she was born in California. They moved to Georgia 3 years ago. I found her teacher's name. I saw her class photo, her standing in the front row, hands folded, that same little crooked smile. I dug through relatives' social media, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, comments under news articles, posts about the vigil. Then a notification popped up on the screen. New message. The account name was one I recognized, a distant relative of the Eversons, someone who'd been posting "Pray for Kaylee" graphics for days. I clicked the message. "Do not look for me." The word sent a cold spike through my chest. Then an image appeared. I swear to you, I am telling this part as clearly as I can. I am not exaggerating. I am not hallucinating. I am not lying. In the photo, Kaylee sat in the corner of a small concrete room. Her pajamas were torn and dirty. Her hair was a tangled mess. She held her right hand against her chest, and her face was twisted in pain. Blood dripped from where one of her fingers should have been. And next to her, leaning into the frame, smiling that awful wide smile, too big for any face, was me. Same wrinkles, same eyes, same lines, but something was wrong with that smile, and my eyes, were completely black in the picture. No whites, just pits. Another message appeared. "Do not look for us." I stared at the screen, my mind screaming that this was impossible, that someone had edited the image, that this was some kind of sick joke, but my gut wouldn't accept it. I clicked on the profile that had sent the message. It was filled with posts about Kaylee, photos of her, paragraphs begging people to share her story, asking for help, tagging local news outlets and the police department. There was one post that made my heart drop. "Rest in peace, sweet Kaylee. Heaven gained an angel today," it said, followed by a string of crying and angel emojis. The timestamp: 2 hours before the box with the finger had been opened in that parking garage. They had announced her dead before the evidence had even come back to the station. That account was involved. Or they knew something. Or both. But what could I do? Go to my boss and say, "Hey, someone is using my face to taunt me with a kidnapped girl and severed fingers." They'd lock me up or strip my badge. I did the only thing I could think of. I typed a message back. "Who is this?" I wrote. For a man with decades of experience interrogating suspects, it was a stupid opening line. But my mind was a mess. The scene mark appeared under my message almost immediately. My heart pounded. I stared at the screen, waiting for the typing indicator. I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like a few seconds. Then I heard pounding on my front door. Loud and urgent. I looked at the time. 3:47. 2 hours had passed. I hadn't blinked. I hadn't moved. I had no memory of the time between sending that message and the knock on the door. I went to answer it on shaky legs. Ripley stood there, hands in his pockets, worry lines deep on his forehead. "Hey, boss," he said quietly. "We've been trying to reach you. You okay?" "I'm sick," I said. "Flu or something." He didn't seem convinced. "You seen that VHS tape?" he asked. "Some of the guys want to take another look, but it's not in the cabinet. Last time I saw it, you had it in your office." My heartbeat sped up. "No," I said. "Haven't seen it. Maybe someone misfiled it." "And the clock in your office," he added. "Why'd you take the batteries out? People are saying you've been off. You want to tell me what's going on?" "I'm fine, John," I lied. "Like I said, just sick. I wouldn't come near me if I were you." I tried to close the door. He pushed it back open with his palm. "One more thing," he said. His voice was softer now, but there was something in it that put my stomach in a knot. "We found something on that social media account you might want to see. And we pulled some prints off the box from your porch. I need you to come down to the station with me. We'll sort it out there." Prints. I didn't have to ask whose. "I don't think I'm up for a drive," I said, really not feeling good. He stands there staring at me for a moment. Then he tries again. "Come on, man. We've worked together a long time. Just do this one thing for me. Come with me. Let's talk. I'll be right there with you." Code. I knew it. This was no longer a friendly visit, and this was a request with a badge behind it. If I went with him, I wasn't going to my desk. I was going to an interview room. I smiled like my face had forgotten how. "All right," I said slowly. "Let me put on some clothes. I'll meet you at the car." He gave me a small, sad smile. "We're going to figure this out," he said, "one way or another." As soon as I closed the door, I went to the back of the house. I didn't plan it. There was no calm decision. My body just moved. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, my old backup pistol, and walked out the back door into my yard. I hopped the fence and headed for the tree line behind my house. I couldn't go to that station, not until I understood what was happening, not until I knew who, or what, was using my face. I walked. I don't know how long. Part of the night. Most of it. maybe all of it. I walked through woods and ditches, along back roads, across empty lots. I stayed off the main streets. I stayed where it was dark. I thought about Kaylee. I thought about my own daughter, the one I'd lost years ago to a drunk driver. I thought about what happened to cops in prison when the other inmates found out what you used to be. I thought about the tape. Eventually, through the branches and dark, I saw light. Bright white light from a tall lamp in a parking lot. A corner store. As I stepped closer, I recognized it. The Carter Street store. Same cracked sign, same faded posters in the window, same door. The light from the lamppost made the snow of old cigarette butts glow pale. Instinctively, I moved toward the tree line, blending into the shadows. And then I saw her. Little Kaylee in her pajamas, standing under the lamp, looking around with those same confused eyes, lost, alone, shivering. My heart flooded with relief and horror at the same time. There she was. I watched her for a long, breathless moment. Part of me wanted to run straight to her. Part of me wanted to turn and sprint in the other direction. Instead, I did the only thing that felt right in that moment. I stepped out just enough from behind the tree so she could see me, and I called her name. Kaylee. She turned. Slowly. Just like in the tape. Her eyes met mine. I forced my face into something soft, something calm, the kind of look I'd give a scared child in an interview room. I lifted my hand and gave a small, gentle wave. Come here. And she did. So yes, Kaylee is with me now. She is alive. She is scared. She cries at night. I try to be kind. I try to give her food, warmth, cartoons on an old TV when the signal cooperates. I don't touch her. I don't hurt her. I talk to her softly, like a father. I don't know how I got here. I don't know what version of time or reality I'm standing in. I don't know who that other me is, the one with the black eyes and the smile that doesn't fit my face. Maybe it's me in a week, a month, a year. Maybe it's not me at all. Maybe something is wearing my face. I don't have answers yet, so I'm keeping her safe until I do. I swear, when I understand what is happening, when I know she can go back without being taken again, I will bring her home. I will walk her right up to her parents' door. I will ring the bell and let her run into their arms. Until then, I'm asking you for one thing. To Ripley, to the department, to anyone reading this, do not look for me. Story 2. I'm typing this with hands that won't stop shaking, sitting in the weak glow of my laptop. The rest of the house is dark. I could turn on a light, but I'm scared that if I do, I'll see something I don't want to see. The sun is still hours away. I don't think I'll make it to morning, but I have to try to get this all out. I need someone to know I'm not crazy. I know how it sounds. I know what I'm about to say will make people roll their eyes and say I'm stressed, or sick, or imagining things. But I'm not. I am fully aware. I know what I saw. I know what's walking around my house right now. It started with my son. His name is Leo. He's 4 years old, and he loves Christmas more than anyone I've ever met. When December started, it was like someone turned on a switch inside him. Every morning, he woke up talking about Santa, elves, a reindeer, and presents. Every night he wanted a Christmas story. We read The Night Before Christmas so many times the pages got soft and wrinkled. Our street looked like a postcard. Colored lights hung from every roof. Plastic snowmen and glowing reindeer sat on frozen lawns. I could smell pine trees and cold air every time I opened the door. Inside my house, it was warm and cozy and safe. Or at least, I thought so. Leo and I wrote his letter to Santa again and again. He kept changing his mind about what he wanted. First it was a fire truck, then a robot, then a Lego set. His messy crayon handwriting covered the paper. He took it so seriously, tongue poking out the side of his mouth while he concentrated. He believed with his whole heart. That's what made the screaming feel so wrong. The first night it happened, I woke up to a scream that sliced right through my dreams. Not a scared little whimper, a full, raw, throat-tearing scream. I flew out of bed, heart pounding, and ran to his room. I expected to see him on the floor, maybe hurt, or maybe throwing up. But he was sitting upright in bed. His eyes were wide, staring at the dark corner of his room. His little chest was heaving, and his hands were clutching the blanket up to his chin. "He was here, Mommy," he sobbed as soon as I reached him. He crawled into my arms so quickly he almost knocked me over. Santa was here. I held him tight and stroked his hair, trying to calm him down. His hair was damp with sweat. His pajamas were sticking to his skin. My heart was still racing. "You just had a bad dream, baby," I whispered. "Santa's at the North Pole. He's very busy. He doesn't come until Christmas Eve." "No," he said against my shoulder, shaking his head so hard it rubbed his cheek against my shirt. He was right there. He pointed toward the rocking chair in the corner. It was just a shadowed shape in the dark. He was sitting there. He was watching me. I turned on his nightlight and checked the room, even though I knew nobody was there. I looked in the closet, under the bed, at the window. Everything was normal. I told him so over and over until his sobs turned to sniffles. Eventually, he lay back down. I sat with him until he fell asleep again. I told myself it was just a nightmare. Kids have those. It happens. The next night, it happened again. This time it was around 2 in the morning. Same scream, same terror, same corner of the room. Santa was here, he insisted, shaking like a leaf. He was standing closer this time. My husband, Mark, barely woke up. He rolled over, mumbled, "He's just dreaming," and went back to sleep. He has always been like that. He could sleep through a thunderstorm. I tried to do what I thought a good mom should do. I explained dreams to Leo. I told him that sometimes our brain makes up stories while we sleep. They feel real, but they're not. I said it softly, gently, again and again, but he kept saying the same thing. "He's not nice, Mommy." On the third night, when I ran in and pulled him into my arms, he said something that made my skin crawl. His smile is too big. It seems like such a simple sentence, just 4 words that shouldn't mean much. But the way he said it, his voice was shaking. His eyes weren't just scared. They were empty in a strange way, like he had seen something he didn't know how to process. "A smile too big?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maybe you saw a silly Santa in a movie, sweetie. Sometimes our brains mix things up when we sleep." He shook his head again, more slowly this time. No, it was wrong. Kids have wild imaginations, I told myself. Leo had seen Santa cartoons, Christmas movies, mall Santas. Maybe he had noticed one with an odd fake smile, and now his brain was stretching it into something scary. That's what I decided, and I clung to that explanation, like a life raft. But the nights kept coming, and the fear didn't go away. It grew. Leo started doing anything he could to avoid bedtime. He said he was thirsty. He said he was hungry. His tummy hurt. His leg hurt. There were monsters. He needed just one more hug, one more story, one more trip to the bathroom. Anything that would keep him from lying alone in that bed. When I finally got him under the covers, he would stare into the corners of his room instead of at me. His eyes moved quickly, checking the door, the window, the rocking chair. The little boy who couldn't stop talking about Santa a week ago now didn't want me to say the name at all. "He's listening," he whispered once, when I tried to remind him that Santa liked good boys who went to sleep. He was pale. He had dark circles under his eyes. He barely touched his food. He jumped at small noises. Watching him turn from a happy kid into a nervous, exhausted shell broke my heart. I was exhausted too. I wasn't sleeping much. I stayed up late, listening for his screams, then tried to drag myself through the day on coffee and sugar. I snapped at Mark more than I should have. I cried in the shower with the water running so nobody would hear. Something had to change. One morning, while Leo poked at his cereal and pushed the Cheerios around the bowl, I had an idea. His spoon made small clinking sounds against the ceramic. His little shoulders were slumped. He looked so fragile, not like a child who was excited about Christmas, but like someone who was waiting for something terrible to happen. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing a light tone into my voice. "I have an idea." He didn't look up right away. "What?" "What if we set up a Santa detector?" I said. "Something special that can tell us if anyone comes into your room at night." His eyes finally lifted. "A detector?" "Yeah," I said. "A camera, like a secret spy camera. We'll put it in your room and it will watch all night. If anyone comes in while you're sleeping, we'll see it on video. Then we'll know if it's just dreams or something else." He thought about it for a second. "Like, we can catch him?" "We can catch anything," I said. "We'll be a team, you and me." A tiny smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, just a little bit, but it was more than I had seen in days. That same afternoon, I went to the store and bought a Wi-Fi security camera. Just a simple one people use as baby monitors. As I stood in the aisle, I suddenly felt ridiculous, buying a camera to prove to my own child that Santa wasn't creeping into his room at night. But under that embarrassment was a small, hard knot of fear. What if the camera did catch something? I pushed that thought away. No, it wouldn't. And this was just to show Leo that he was safe. That's all. That evening, we set it up together. I let him help so he would feel in control. He chose the spot, on his bookshelf, facing his bed. From there, we could see the whole room, the window, the door, the rocking chair. We downloaded the camera's app on my phone. We waved at the lens and laughed when our faces showed up in black and white. "Now we'll see him," Leo said softly. "Now we'll see there's nothing there," I answered. That night, I lay in bed and watched the live feed of his room for a long time. The picture was grainy and gray, with that weird infrared glow. Leo turned over a few times, pulled his blanket up, pushed it down. Eventually, he went still. I watched the shadows, the rocking chair, the door, the blank wall. Nothing moved. It was just a normal bedroom. Quiet. Slowly, my eyes grew heavy. I placed the phone on my nightstand, screen still lit. I told myself everything would be fine. We had proof now. I could show him in the morning that nothing happened while he slept. The next night, there were no screams. The night after that, same thing. Silence. I still checked the app from time to time. Every time I looked, the room was empty except for my sleeping child. Nothing strange, no shapes, no movement. Leo started to relax. He didn't fight bedtime as hard. He stopped talking about Santa being in his room. He only asked once, "Did the camera see him?" "No," I said. "Nothing at all, see? You're safe." He nodded. His shoulders didn't seem quite as tight. I could swear he even hummed to himself while brushing his teeth. It was working. I felt the tension in my own body loosen. Mark slapped my back and called me a genius. "Dr. Mom," he said, grinning. It felt like we had faced something heavy and pushed it away. I let myself believe the worst was over. I was wrong. On the fourth night, I didn't open the app before bed. I was too tired. I trusted the camera now. Trusted the silence. Trusted the 2 nights of quiet. Sometime after midnight, a sound woke me up. It was my phone. A little ping. I rolled over and squinted at the screen. I had a notification. Motion detected in Leo's room. For a second, I considered ignoring it. The sensitivity might just be too high. He probably rolled over or kicked his blanket. I almost put the phone back down. But something about the way the hairs on the back of my neck stood up stopped me. A cold feeling slipped down my spine. Just check, I thought. It will take 2 seconds. I opened the app. Leo's room appeared on the screen. The same gray image I had seen a dozen times. The same bookshelf. The same rocking chair. The same little lump of my son under his blanket. At first, everything looked normal. The room was still. Nothing moved. I almost exhaled and closed the app. Then I saw it. It wasn't in the corner where the rocking chair sat. It was closer. In the narrow space between the end of Leo's bed and the wall, there was something. At first, my brain tried to skip over it, like it didn't want to see it. It looked like the shadows were bent wrong there, like the darkness was folded into a shape that didn't match the rest of the room. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart beating in my throat. My mind tried to tell me it was a trick, a pile of clothes, a blanket, a glitch in the video, something normal. And then it moved. Slowly, very slowly, it unfolded. It didn't stand up like a person getting out of a crouch. It uncoiled, like a spider stretching its long legs, like something that wasn't used to standing in a human shape. As it rose, its body came into focus. It was tall, much taller than any adult I had ever seen. Its arms and legs were long and thin, stretched out wrong. Its body looked like a skeleton covered with too tight skin. The skin was smooth and pale, almost white, glowing in the infrared. It stepped closer to Leo's bed. The movement was silent, too smooth. That's when I saw its hands. The fingers were impossibly long. They hung below where its knees should have been. Each finger ended in a dark, rough point, like a dirty claw. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone and run into my son's room and grab him and never let go. But I couldn't move. My body felt like it was frozen in ice. I could only watch. The creature stood over Leo. For several seconds it didn't move at all. It just loomed above him, its long arms hanging. The blanket rose and fell with his small breaths. He didn't wake up. He had no idea what was standing there. Then the thing began to bend down. The camera caught its head as it lowered. For the first time, I could see its face. There were no eyes, just 2 deep black hollows where eyes should be. Not empty sockets with edges and bone, just black holes, like someone had painted 2 long dark ovals on its face that swallowed all the light. Below that, there was a line. a thin, dark line where a mouth might be. As I stared, that line began to stretch. Slowly, slowly, it pulled wider. The line opened, growing longer and longer until it looked like it cut its whole face in half. No teeth, no tongue, just darkness, like its mouth was another hole to nowhere. It was smiling, and in that moment, I heard Leo's little voice echo in my head. His smile is too big. My body went cold. This was it. This was what he had seen. Night after night. This thing. This tall, thin, eyeless thing with a grin that was all wrong standing beside his bed while he slept. I didn't think my fear could get any worse. Then it did. The creature stopped looking at Leo. Its head twisted, not like a person turning their neck, but like something turning too far, too smoothly, like bone and muscle didn't matter. It tilted its face up toward the camera. Those black pits where its eyes should have been pointed straight at the lens, straight at me. The smile stretched even wider. I felt something in that look. I swear it. I felt it. It knew I was watching. Not in the way you know a camera is there, in a deeper way, like it could see through the camera, through the app, through the glass of my phone, into my bedroom, into me. My heart hammered so hard, I thought I was going to faint. I threw the phone onto the bed as if it had burned my skin. I squeezed my eyes shut, but all I could see was that pale face, those long arms, that smile. I lay there for what felt like hours, listening, waiting for Leo to scream, waiting to hear the door open, waiting for something to touch me, to breathe on me. Nothing happened. After a long time, with my hands still shaking, I picked up the phone again, and I forced myself to look. The room was empty. No tall, thin shape. No long fingers. Just my little boy sleeping peacefully, blanket bunched under his chin. He stayed asleep the rest of the night. He did not scream. He did not wake up. In the morning, he bounced into the kitchen, full of energy. He laughed when I poured milk too fast and it splashed. He asked how many days were left until Christmas. He talked about reindeer again. He didn't mention Santa being in his room. He didn't look into the corners anymore. Whatever had been there wasn't bothering him now, because it was bothering me. I saved the video. I don't know why. Maybe to prove to myself it had really happened. Maybe because part of me thought I might need to show it to someone someday. I watched it once in daylight, when the sun was shining through the kitchen window. It was still awful. The grainy gray image, the folded shadow, the slow uncoiling into that tall, thin figure, the way it leaned over my son, the way its head turned toward the camera, that twisted smile. But it was also proof that Leo hadn't just been having nightmares, proof that something else was in our house. I thought about showing it to Mark. I held my phone out once, thumb hovering over the play button. What would I even say? Hey, honey, there's a 7-foot monster with no eyes watching our kids sleep every night. I caught it on camera. Look. I knew how that would end. He'd think it was a prank, or a glitch, or that I had lost my mind, that I was too tired and had gone off the deep end. So I didn't show him. Instead, I started to keep this secret alone. That's when the feeling began. The feeling of being watched. It wasn't constant at first, just quick moments. I'd be washing dishes and suddenly feel like something was standing behind me. I'd turn around fast and see nothing but the empty kitchen. I'd be folding laundry in the living room and catch something move out of the corner of my eye. I'd turn my head and see only shadows. Then came the sounds. One afternoon, I was sitting on the couch, trying to read, while Leo watched a cartoon. I heard a faint scratching from behind the wall. Scritch, scrape, scritch. It sounded like long nails dragging slowly along the inside of the drywall. Not mice. I know what mice sound like. This was slower, longer. I mute the TV and held my breath. The sound stopped. The silence that followed was somehow worse. Another time, I woke up in the middle of the night and smelled something. A strong, heavy smell, like wet dirt and rotting leaves, like a basement that had been flooded and then left shut for years. It filled the air around my bed. By the time I sat up and turned on the lamp, it was gone. I started having my own nightmares. In them, I was lying in my bed, just like in real life. But I couldn't move. My whole body felt pinned down. I couldn't even open my mouth to scream. My eyes were the only things that still worked. The bedroom door would slowly open. It would stand there in the doorway. The same tall, thin shape from the video. The same long arms. The same blank, pale face. Sometimes it would stay at the door. Sometimes it would walk closer and closer until it stood at the foot of the bed. It never touched me. It didn't need to. It just watched. And its mouth would stretch in that horrible smile as it looked at me, like it was enjoying my fear. Every time I woke up sweaty, gasping, my heart racing, I would stare into the dark of the real room and feel no relief, because I knew that what I saw in my dreams was real. I had video proof. I stopped sleeping much. I was scared to close my eyes. I lay awake at night, listening for any sound, a creak in the hallway, a step on the stairs, a scratch. I lost weight. My hands shook all the time. My brain felt like it was full of cotton. Mark told me I looked tired. He suggested I see a doctor. He said maybe it was anxiety or depression. I said it was just stress. Christmas, work, parenting, normal things. I couldn't tell him the truth. Then the thing stopped waiting for my dreams. One night I woke up because I felt something press on the end of the bed. It was the same feeling as when a child climbs up to lie at your feet. Mattress dipping, weight settling. But Leo wasn't there. I knew that without even looking. I held perfectly still. My eyes stayed shut. The weight didn't move. It just stayed there, heavy and patient. I wanted to scream for Mark, but my throat locked up. Minutes passed, or maybe an hour. Time didn't feel real. Finally, as dawn started to light up the edges of the curtains, the weight lifted. I opened my eyes to an empty room. After that, I stopped going to bed at the same time as Mark. I made excuses to stay up, wrapping gifts, doing laundry, cleaning the kitchen, anything to delay being in that room in the dark. But it didn't matter. Last week, it got worse. That night, I actually managed to fall asleep. I don't remember when. I only remember waking up with a sudden, intense feeling of cold on my face. I opened my eyes. It was right there, not at the doorway, not at the end of the bed, leaning over me. Its head was inches from my face. I could see its skin up close. It wasn't smooth. It had a dry, stretched look, like thin paper pulled too tight over bone. It looked fragile and wrong at the same time. Those eye holes were so dark. I thought they would be flat, just black patches, but they looked deep, like pits. Like if I reached up and touched them, my fingers would keep going down and never hit the bottom. The mouth, that awful mouth, was stretched into the widest smile I had ever seen. The corners almost reached where its ears should have been. Inside was nothing but black. No teeth, just emptiness. Cold air washed over my cheeks. It was breathing on me. The air smelled like old dirt, mold, and something else. Something rotten, something wrong. We stared at each other. Or at least, it stared at me. I don't know if it could actually see, but I felt seen. Every part of me felt exposed under that smile. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. Tears began to run down my face. After a long moment, it straightened up. I watched its body rise higher and higher, taller than it had any right to be. Then it stepped backward. Instead of turning and walking out, it seemed to simply fade. The shadows around the closet door swallowed it. 1 second it was there, and the next it wasn't. I lay there shaking until the digital clock on the nightstand said 6:30 a.m. I didn't sleep again, which brings me to tonight. Christmas Eve. The tree is decorated in the living room, lights blinking softly through the dark. Wrapped presents are piled underneath. Stockings hang from the mantel. If you walked in right now, you would think it was a normal, cozy holiday scene. Leo is sleeping upstairs. He was full of pure joy tonight. He left out cookies and milk, plus a carrot for the reindeer. He hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm not scared anymore, Mommy. Santa is good now." I kissed his forehead and told him I loved him. I wanted to tell him so many more things. I wanted to tell him to stay little, to never stop believing in nice things, to never see what I have seen. Mark is in our bed, already snoring softly. He has no idea I'm down here in the dark. I told him I had to wrap a few last-minute gifts. That was a lie. All the gifts are already wrapped. I just can't bring myself to go upstairs, because I can feel it. In the sense that something is in the house is stronger than ever tonight. It's like the air itself is heavy and watching. About an hour ago, I heard the floorboards in our bedroom creak. Not the normal sound of Mark shifting in his sleep, but something slower, heavier. A few minutes later, I heard a step on the landing at the top of the stairs. Then another. The stair closest to Leo's room. Now there's a sound just outside the living room door. A slow, careful scratching. Long nails dragging up and down the frame. Over and over. It knows I'm in here. My laptop screen is the only light. The rest of the room feels like it's full of thick, dark air. Every nerve in my body is screaming at me to run. But where would I go? It knows this house better than I do now. I don't know what it wants. I don't know why it chose my child first, and then moved on to me. I don't know what happens when it finally decides to do more than watch. But I know one thing with a kind of cold, hard certainty that makes my stomach twist. Whatever is on the other side of that door, scratching and waiting, I know it's not Santa. Story 3. It had been a month since my entire class vanished, and I could still hear them. All of them. Every voice, every laugh, every scream. They were loud in my head, loud in my throat, loud in my stomach. Dr. Myers's office smelled like orange candy and old perfume. The scent made my stomach roll. The room itself was too bright and too neat. A little plant on the windowsill. A framed inspirational quote on the wall about healing and moving forward. A bowl of hard candy on the table between us. I sat on the edge of the couch and tried to breathe like she taught me. Deep breath in. Hold for 8 seconds. I pulled in air and held it, but 8 seconds was too long. Halfway through, my chest started to ache. My lungs screamed. My body panicked. My fingers dug into my jeans. and twisted the denim until my knuckles turned white. I was going to suffocate, right here, in this pretty office with its pretty plant and fake calm. The leather of her chair squeaked when she shifted. "Wendy," Dr. Myers said, voice soft. "Is there something on your mind?" "Yeah, Wendy. Tell her." Cass Finch's voice hit me first, sharp and mocking, right against my ear. He didn't sound like a memory. He sounded close, too close, like he was leaning over the back of the couch, grinning down at me. "Spill," he added, snorting. I flinched, my fingers tightening in my jeans, but I didn't look behind me. There was no point. I knew he wouldn't be there. Dr. Myers couldn't hear Cass. No one could. "Wendy," she tried again, crossing one leg over the other. Her heels clicked softly when she moved. "You mentioned last time that you've been having stomach problems since your classmates disappeared." Disappeared. That was the word everyone used. Like they got up and walked out of existence. Like they had evaporated into thin air. Like we hadn't gone to school one normal Monday morning, and then suddenly every desk but mine was empty. No bodies, no bags, no phones, nothing. I lifted my head and met Dr. Myers' eyes. She smiled at me, that practiced, gentle therapist smile. Kind, calm, open, fake. Everyone in town had their own theories. That was how it went. One person started it, and soon it passed through the grocery store gossip lines like a virus. According to the sheriff, Cass had already been in trouble for inappropriate behavior with Dr. Myers. The rumor had grown teeth from there. Half the town was sure she'd snapped, that she'd killed him, and then killed everyone else. The rest thought it was a cult. Aliens, government experiment, rapture. They looked at me like I was the punchline to a joke nobody wanted to tell out loud. The only 17-year-old who didn't vanish. The only one still sitting in class that morning when the bell rang and nobody came in. The only one whose desk wasn't suddenly empty. "Can you tell me how you're feeling?" Dr. Myers asked, constantly sick. "Tell her, Wendy," Leah whispered in my head, much too bright, like she was excited. "Tell her everything." Leah's voice was usually loud, cheerleader loud, hallway loud, laughter that cuts into your back loud. Now she was soft. I swallowed. My throat burned. I couldn't eat. The smell of food made me gag. My stomach always felt too tight and too full at the same time. I was bloated, heavy, swollen. Every time I looked in the mirror, my stomach looked wrong, like it wasn't mine. "Sick," I said, barely more than a whisper. I swallowed again to push back the taste of acid. Sometimes the vomit wasn't just vomit. Sometimes it felt like it had weight, like it wanted out, like it had fingers. "That's normal," Dr. Myers said gently, nodding like she had expected that answer. "Wendy, you're going through something traumatic. There's no right way to feel. Your body is reacting to an extreme situation." Bullshit. The word dropped into my mind like a stone into water. Nicholas. His voice was rough and tired and angry, the way it always was in the back row when a teacher said something he thought was stupid. I tried to ignore him. It never worked. Nick was the worst. When he screamed, he screamed. "You really gonna sit here and listen to this?" He spat. "While it's right in front of her, while it's screaming at her." Agony ripped through my gut, hot and sharp. A cramp grabbed my insides and twisted. I sucked in a breath and jumped to my feet before I even realized I had moved. On some level, I knew I probably looked insane, but it hurt. It hurt. My stomach clenched so hard I saw black for a second. "Wendy?" Dr. Myers frowned, leaning forward. Honey, are you okay? These adults are fucking stupid, Nick yelled, his voice echoing through my head, like metal scraping concrete. It's screaming at them, and they refuse to see it. Shut up, man, Harry muttered. His voice was lazy, deep, always trying to sound bored. It's getting juicy. Oh my God, Nick roared. Read the room again, Harry. We're inside her. My knees wobbled. Sweat prickled the back of my neck. The room blurred. Bathroom, I got out, my hand flying to my mouth. Dr. Myers didn't hesitate. She pointed across the room. Through that door. Take your time. I didn't wait to hear what else she was going to say. I stumbled across the office and shoved open the bathroom door. The light was too bright. White tile, white sink, white toilet, no window. The air smelled like cheap floral cleaner. The door clicked shut behind me. I dropped to my knees in front of the toilet. The cold tile felt good under my palms for half a second, and then the nausea hit hard. I squeezed my eyes shut. Please, I whispered. Please stop. My stomach rolled again. This time, it felt like something inside me rolled back. Thick warmth flooded up my throat and into my mouth. It was heavy and hot, not like normal vomit. I clamped my lips shut by instinct, but something pushed against them from the inside. Stop, I tried to say, but it came out warped and wet. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere deeper. Fingers pressed against the backs of my teeth. Actual fingers. You psycho bitch, a chorus of voices snarled, all layered over the top of each other, as if my tongue was trying to move and they were dragging it from the inside. Let us out. My cheeks bulged. Tears flooded my eyes. No. I clamped my hand over my mouth, choking, and swallowed as hard as I could. The mass pushed back, fighting. My throat stretched, burning, as it slid down. I could feel every shape, every knuckle, every nail. My stomach jerked. I gagged and lurched forward. Something small and wet bounced off my tongue and hit porcelain with a soft plop. I stared down. Cass's eyeball lay in the bottom of the toilet bowl, staring back up at me. Hazel iris, black pupil, little red threads still attached. It bobbed once in the water like a tiny boat. My vision tunneled. For a second, the whole world was just that eye, and the memory that went with it. Cass Finch, standing in the hallway. Cass blocking my locker. Cass laughing when I dropped my books and stepped on my own notebook. Cass grabbing my schedule and reading my grades out loud. Cass whispering things in my ear about my body, about my clothes, about what nobody else would ever want. Cass shoving my shoulders so hard I slammed into the lockers. Cass throwing my sketchbook in the trash. Cass, Cass, Cass. Devour your bullies, Wendy. My mother's voice. Calm. I'm serious. Not a joke at all. Devour them before they devour you. The memory rose up sharp and clear. It was the night before everyone disappeared. I had come home with a split lip and a bruised hip from another accidental shove on the stairs. Mom had been standing at the kitchen sink, washing the same plate for too long. She had looked tired, the kind of tired that went beyond sleep. Her eyes had been shiny and distant as she watched the water run. They'll stop if you stand up to them, she should have said, or tell a teacher, or ignore them. That's what normal moms on TV said. Instead, she turned off the tap, dried her hands, and looked at me with a strange light in her eyes. Devour your bullies, Wendy, she said. It's the only way some people learn. I had thought she was being dramatic, a weird metaphor about not letting people walk all over me. I hadn't realized she meant it literally until later, until the classroom, until lunch, until the plate of brownies she had packed and told me to share, until the way she had smiled as she watched me leave for school the next morning. Too wide, too proud. "Let me know how it goes," she had said. Then she hadn't been home when I got back. No note, no text, just silence. I swallowed hard now, dragging my mind back to the present, back to the bathroom, back to the toilet and the eye. "Put me back, put me back, put me back," Cass chanted, his voice shrill and panicked in my skull. "I swear I won't say anything else, just—" My stomach twisted, the skin pulling tight, as if hands were pressing against it from the inside, stretching. "Shut up," Nick snapped at him. "She needs to flush you, dude." Harry laughed. "Leave him. The view from the toilet is probably an upgrade." I didn't listen to any of them. I never did when it came to this part. My hands moved on their own. I reached into the bowl, fingers shaking, and picked up the eyeball. It was slick and firm and warm. Still. Not cold like it should have been. I gagged and threw my head back, dropping it onto my tongue. I swallowed before I could think, before I could feel anything more than a thick slide. The voices cheered for a second, a roar of sound. Then they started arguing again. "You're disgusting," Leah said, giggling. "You know that, right?" "That's rich coming from you," Harry muttered. "Weren't you the one who told everyone about her drawings?" Leah huffed. "I was just being honest. Her art is scary." "It doesn't matter," Nicholas cut in, voice tight. "We need a way out. This isn't going to hold forever. Look at her." He wasn't wrong. My stomach was squirming, not like nausea, like movement, like something, or many somethings, were shifting and writhing under my skin. I pressed my palm flat against my shirt. It felt hard and lumpy in places, softer in others, like there were objects arranged inside me, stacked, pressed together. We were all there, my whole class, 15 of them, 15 missing kids. I had eaten them, not all at once, not in some crazy wild animal attack. It had been slower, sneaky, little pieces, bites, crumbs. It had started with the brownies Mom made. I hadn't known. I swear I hadn't known. But when the fire alarm went off and the lights blinked and the room shook and everyone around me had dropped to the floor, twitching and screaming, something old and mean had woken up inside me. Something hungry. Their bodies had looked soft and small and easy. And Mom had told me to devour my bullies. I remembered standing in the middle of the chaos while teachers yelled and sirens wailed and smoke blurred the air, and the smell of burning sugar and burnt hair filled my nose. Nobody looked at me. They were too busy. My class lay on the ground in strange positions. Cass on his back, mouth open. Leah curled on her side. Nicholas face down, hand still reaching for his phone. Harry crumpled over his desk. Others I barely ever talked to, scattered between them. My mouth had watered. One step forward, one bite, just one, just to see. No one saw me kneel. No one saw what I did with my hands, with my teeth. No one saw the blood disappear before it hit the floor. The room had blinked again, and then the sirens outside had stopped. The smoke cleared. The desks were empty. They were gone. Only I remained. Now, in the bathroom, I let myself fall back against the wall. My chest heaved, my throat burned, my eyes stung. "I can't digest you," I whispered. Saying it out loud made something inside me crack. My stomach answered with a low, angry groan. A push, a kick, fingers stretching my skin from the inside, palms pressing outward. "You're not trying hard enough," Leah sang. "You used to actually chew." "I think she's full," Harry said. "We're gonna start leaking out soon." "Good," Nicholas snapped. "Then someone might finally see what she did." What her mom did. "Don't bring my mom into this," I hissed. "She started it," Cass said. He didn't sound mocking now. He sounded scared. "Wendy?" Dr. Myers's voice floated through the bathroom door, gentle but worried. "Is everything all right in there? Do you need anything?" "Yes," I thought. "I need a new stomach. I need a time machine. I need to never have met any of you." "I'm fine," I croaked. "Liar," Nick whispered. "Take your time," Dr. Myers said. I could hear her chair creak again as she shifted. "We can stop for today if you're not feeling well." I stared at the bathroom floor. The tile pattern blurred and cleared. I couldn't keep going like this. I couldn't keep walking around with 15 people inside me, all yelling at once. I couldn't keep feeling their hands pressing against my insides, clawing at my throat, and scratching the back of my teeth. I couldn't keep puking up pieces of them and swallowing them again, like some messed up recycling bin. But I also couldn't let them out. If I did, everyone would know. The sheriff, the town, Dr. Myers, my mother. If she ever came back. I listened to the voices argue about it inside me. "We should just rip out through her stomach," Leah said. "I saw that in a movie once. It was awesome." "Yeah, no, that killed the person, remember?" Harry said. "I like breathing, thanks." "She deserves it," Nick growled. "She ate us." "She saved us," Leah snapped back. "Do you really want to be stuck on that floor forever? Burning?" They weren't just my bullies. Some of them were worse. Some of them had done things that teachers pretended not to see. Pushed kids into bathrooms, tripped them downstairs, spread rumors so thick they drowned you. They had eaten people too, in their own way, just slower, without teeth. Mom had seen that. Mom had decided something. I didn't know if she had meant for this to happen, for me to be what I was now, a graveyard with a heartbeat. I wanted to scream at them all to shut up. I wanted silence, my own thoughts, my own voice. But when I opened my mouth, another wave of warmth surged up. This time I forced it down faster. The taste of copper and chalk filled my nose. If I let too much out, I didn't know what would come through next. Teeth, a tongue, a hand with a phone still in its grip. "I'll get you out one day," I said softly, mostly to myself. "Just not yet. Not here." They didn't answer right away. For a moment, there was something almost like a sigh, echoing through my bones. A small shift. A tiny bit of stillness. Then Cass laughed quietly. "Tick-tock, Wendy," he murmured. "You can't keep a whole class inside you forever." "Especially not with your horrible digestion," Harry added. Leah giggled. Nick, for once, stayed silent. I pushed myself up, legs trembling, and flushed the toilet even though there was nothing there but water. I washed my hands until the skin turned red, then splashed cold water on my face. My reflection looked pale and puffy. My eyes were ringed in purple. My stomach pressed against my shirt, round and tight. I looked pregnant. With what? I wasn't sure anymore. I dried my face and forced a smile that felt wrong on my lips. Then I opened the door and stepped back into Dr. Myers's office. She looked up at me with that same soft expression. "Do you want to stop for today?" she asked. "We can schedule another session when you're feeling better. This is a lot, Wendy. for anyone. It's fine, I lied. I'm fine. Her eyes flicked to my stomach for a second. It might have just been my imagination, or maybe it wasn't. Have you talked to your mother? She asked carefully. Is she back yet? Last time you mentioned she'd been gone a while. I sat down slowly. The couch creaked under my weight, or under all of ours. No, I said. I didn't add that sometimes I could swear I heard her too, faint and far away, humming in the background of all the other voices, waiting. I didn't add that. Sometimes, when I dreamed, I was back in the classroom. The fire alarm was ringing, smoke was rising, and she was standing in the doorway, watching me eat, proud. Maybe she will come back soon, Dr. Myers said. You've been through a very unique, very painful experience. You don't have to carry it alone. A chorus of bitter laughter echoed inside me. Too late. I was already carrying everything. Everyone. I pressed my hands together in my lap so she wouldn't see them shake. She smelled like orange candy and stale perfume. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course, she replied. Do you think... I paused, choosing the words carefully. Do you think some people deserve what happens to them? She tilted her head. What do you mean? Like people who hurt others. People who push and push and push until someone breaks. People who laugh when you fall. Who pull your hair. Who hold you down. Who block the doors. Who steal your things. Who whisper your secrets. Who make every day feel like walking into a storm. People who smile while they do it. I swallowed. Nothing, I said. Forget it. She watched me for a long moment. Then she nodded. If you ever want to talk about that, she said, we can. There are ways to let go of anger. Healthier ways. Inside me, 15 voices shouted at once. Let us out. Eat us again. You're the monster. You're our home. You saved us. You ruined us. You ruined yourself. We're hungry. We're tired. We're scared. We're not going anywhere. I closed my eyes for a second and took another breath. In. Hold. 7 seconds. 6. 5. I let the air out early, before it hurt. No one noticed. No one ever did. I opened my eyes and smiled a little. Dr. Myers smiled back. Everyone else smiled too. From the inside. Story 4. I've been unsure for a long time about whether I should share this. I still don't know if I'm making the right choice. I won't use anyone's real name, and I won't say which town this happened in, because there is still an investigation going on. I don't want the wrong people to find this and connect it back to me. All I can do is tell you what I saw, what I heard, and what I lived through, as honestly as I can. I know this is going to sound unbelievable. If I was hearing it from someone else, I might not believe it either. But I promise that everything I am about to write is true, especially what happened after dark. My best friend Danny and I grew up on the edge of a small town. Out there, the trees were always full of insects buzzing, and the air always smelled of pine. Our houses were close enough that I could see his bedroom window from mine. Danny was the kind of kid who could turn a simple afternoon into something unforgettable. To him, a walk became an adventure, a game became a quest, and a boring evening turned into a story we'd talk about for weeks. We spent our childhood exploring the trails near the reservoir, making up scavenger hunts and fighting over who could reach the old water tower first. We told each other ghost stories by flashlight in tents in our yards, pretending we weren't scared even when we were. Those are some of my happiest memories, and they all have Danny in them. Everything changed last fall. Danny went on a hunting trip with his dad, Neil, a few towns away. He was supposed to be back in time for his 16th birthday. We had already planned the celebration. Bad horror movies, too many video games, and way too much junk food. But that day never happened. He never showed up. Only Neil came home. I remember the exact moment his mother realized something was wrong. I was in my room when I heard her scream. It ripped through the quiet evening, cut straight across the yards between our houses, and made the birds in the trees explode into the air. I had never heard a sound like that in my life. It was the sound of pure panic and pain. Later, I heard what Neil told the police. He said he woke up in their tent early in the morning and saw that Danny was gone. He said he searched the woods for hours, calling his name, but never found him. After that, he called the police. For days, the woods were full of officers and volunteers walking in long lines. He's shouting Danny's name and shining flashlights into every dark corner. They found nothing. No torn clothing, no dropped phone, no footprints, no blood. It was like he had disappeared into thin air. People in town said that Danny had gone missing in the middle of the night. Some said he must have gotten lost. Others whispered worse things, but no one said those things out loud. Even though Danny's father was the last person to see him alive, and the story didn't make much sense. Nobody pushed too hard. His parents were liked and respected. Neil had old friends in the police department. They seemed to take his story as the truth and moved on. No charges were filed. The search slowed. Within a couple of weeks, the case went cold. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Danny never came back. For a long time, I barely went outside. It felt wrong to do normal things like walk to the store or sit on the porch. Every time I looked toward his house, something inside me twisted. The sadness that filled their place started to spill into ours. Their house no longer felt like a home. It was like a dark shape on our street. The blinds were always half closed, and shadows filled every window. At night, I sometimes heard the old porch swing creak back and forth, and the clink of beer bottles dropping onto the wooden boards. I tried to respect their privacy and not stare, but every time I glanced over, I noticed the heavy bags under his parents' eyes. They sat outside less and less until they stopped altogether. I tried to tell myself they were just grieving, that nothing was truly wrong. But one day at school started to crack that idea. In calculus class, my teacher, Mrs. Parker, had left a stack of graded papers on her desk. During work time, I went up to staple my homework, and my eye fell on the paper on top of the stack. My breath caught in my throat. Danny's name was written there. His name was scribbled in the same messy handwriting I'd seen 1,000 times before. I stared at it, feeling lightheaded. I knew every letter of his name by heart. I recognized the way he pressed his pencil down too hard, leaving deep grooves in the paper whenever he was annoyed or frustrated. It was his handwriting, not something copied or traced. It was his. I asked Mrs. Parker how she had gotten that assignment. She answered like it was the most normal thing in the world. She said, "Oh, his mother dropped it off this morning before school started. He's catching up on missed assignments from home." I just stood there, he holding my homework and staring at his name. I barely heard her explanation. All I could focus on was the fact that if Danny was turning in homework, then he had to be alive. And if he was alive, why hadn't he called me? Why hadn't he sent a single message? Instead of feeling relieved, a slow, cold dread spread through my chest. Something wasn't right. I didn't push Mrs. Parker with more questions. I just nodded and went back to my seat, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I stared at my notebook and pretended to listen to the lesson, but my mind stayed on that page with his name on it. The whole thing made no sense. A missing kid suddenly turning in homework should have been huge news. People in town loved gossip, yet nobody was talking about it. No shocked conversations in the halls, no whispers at lunch. It was like everyone had agreed not to mention it. His parents never seemed like the type to hide things, but suddenly I felt like there was a secret that everyone knew, except me. After school, I decided I couldn't just sit with those questions. I rode my bike over to Danny's house. I knocked on the front door. Neil and Kathleen answered together. When I asked if Danny was home, they looked offended, like I had said something rude. They quickly told me that no, he wasn't there. Their tone made it clear they wanted me to drop it. But when I mentioned that I had seen his homework in Mrs. Parker's class, their expressions changed. Kathleen exhaled sharply and lowered her eyes. "Oh, you saw," she said quietly. "We were hoping to keep this private." Her smile went stiff, her face tightening like she was forcing herself to stay calm. She told me that Danny had gotten a serious viral infection in the woods. She said his immune system was very weak, and he couldn't leave the house yet. She explained that they were turning in his homework so he wouldn't fall behind in school. I asked if I could at least say hi to him, even from a distance or through the door. At that, Neil's reaction was sharp and harsh. His bloodshot eyes glared at me from behind Kathleen. "No!" he snapped, his voice cracking through the air like a whip. Then he tried to soften it. No. He can't have contact with anybody right now. It's too risky. When he's healthy again, that's when you can see him. Kathleen's eyes kept darting to the street, to the windows, like she was afraid someone might be watching. In a low voice, she begged me not to tell anyone what she had said. She said they didn't want people talking or starting rumors. Before I could ask anything else, they shut the door in my face. I stood there on the porch for a while, stunned. I left with more questions than answers. Part of me wanted to bang on the door again and demand to see him. The other part of me felt like I was already pushing too hard. When I got home, I told my parents what had happened. Instead of being shocked, they were annoyed with me. They scolded me for going over there and bothering Danny's parents. They told me I needed to let them handle things their own way, that they had been through enough already. "He's been gone for months," I said, my voice shaking. "We all thought he was dead. How is this not a big deal?" But my questions went nowhere. My parents brushed off my concerns and told me to drop it. Once again, I felt like I was the only one who thought any of this was strange. Angry and hurt, I went up to my room and stayed there for the rest of the day. That night, after midnight, something drew my attention to Danny's window. It was dark, but I saw movement behind his curtains. A tall, hunched figure moved slowly in the shadows. I watched as a twitching hand pulled the curtains aside, just enough for someone to tap on the glass. Once, twice, 3 times. Moonlight caught a pair of reflective eyes staring straight across the yard at my window. They were wide and shiny. Before I could really process what I was seeing, the curtains snapped shut again. I shivered and backed away. I wanted to tell myself that it was Danny, that he was okay, but the shape didn't look like him. It was too tall, too stiff. The movements were wrong, almost jerky. For my own sanity and for everyone else, I tried to pretend it didn't matter. I told myself I was tired and seeing things. I pushed it down and tried to move on. The next few months all started to feel the same. I went to school, I did my homework, I pretended everything was normal. At home, I kept glancing at Danny's house, but tried not to think too much about what I might see. Then, one day, his parents called. They told my parents that Danny would be returning to school after spring break. When this news spread, a strange mix of relief and gossip moved through town. People were glad he was alive. Most didn't ask too many questions. I could not wait for spring break to be over. On the morning he was supposed to come back, I got to school early and waited outside the English classroom we shared. I kept pacing, checking the hallway, my heart pounding too fast. When I finally saw him, I froze. Danny looked almost exactly like before. Same freckles, same crooked little smile, same brown hair that brushed against his eyebrows. For a second, it was like the missing months had never happened. But then I noticed the dark, deep circles under his eyes, and the odd way he walked, like his body was stiff and sore. I told myself that he was probably still recovering from being sick. We fell back into talking like we used to. Over lunch, I told him everything that had happened while he was gone. Tests, weird teachers, stupid jokes from other kids. I even told him the rumors people had spread about him. Some said he'd gotten a flesh-eating disease. Others joked about him being kidnapped by aliens. He laughed so hard that chocolate milk sprayed from his nose, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. But whenever I tried to ask him what had happened to him, how he'd really gotten sick, or what it had been like, he shut down. His answers were short. He changed the subject every time. Eventually, I stopped asking. I didn't want to push him away now that he was back. Still, I started to notice odd things. Danny checked the time constantly. During our walks around town, he would ask me what time it was, again and again, even if I'd just told him. Sometimes he would pull out his own phone, look at the screen, and stare at the sky like he was waiting for something. If the sun had moved even a little bit lower, his body would tense up. His eyes would fill with a kind of quiet fear. Whenever the daylight began to fade, his mood changed instantly. Almost every evening, as soon as it started getting dark, his mom's car would pull up in front of my house. She would give one long honk. The sound echoed down the street. The second he heard it, Danny would go pale. "I have to go," he would say under his breath. He never argued, never hesitated. He would just get up and walk off fast, not looking back, disappearing into the gathering dark. For a while, I managed to convince myself that this was just their new routine. Maybe he had strict rules because of his health. Maybe he was on some kind of medication schedule. I tried not to read too much into it. The afternoons we spent together almost felt like the old days. We played video games, rode our bikes, and wasted time like teens do. The weeks blurred together. Then summer came, and the heat was intense. That was when things became even stranger. Even when the temperature warnings went out, and everyone was wearing shorts and tank tops, Danny wore long sleeves and jeans. Sometimes he even wore a jacket. I joked with him that he had turned into a vampire, and couldn't handle the sun anymore. But he just shrugged and said he felt cold all the time. This didn't match the Danny I had grown up with. The old Danny would rip his shirt off the second it hit 70 degrees and run around like it was the best day of his life. Now he dressed like it was winter in the middle of a heat wave. I told myself not to ruin things by pushing. I wanted my friend back. I wanted us to feel normal again. One evening, we were in my basement working on a biology project about allelopathy. My parents were at a blood drive, so the house was empty, except for us. We had papers spread out, notes everywhere, and my laptop open with research tabs pulled up. I had just finished writing down our last bit of data when Danny asked me, once again, what time it was. I remembered noticing the sky earlier. It had turned this beautiful orange before I went downstairs, but I hadn't really checked the actual time. I pulled out my phone, glanced at the screen, and told him it was a little after 6. His reaction scared me. All the color drained from his face. His breath went shallow. His hands began to shake. He stared at the small basement window, where soft orange light was beginning to fade into purple. His eyes were locked on it, and there was real panic there, not just worry. It felt like he was silently counting down to something. "I have to go," he said. The last traces of sunlight cut across his face, making his skin look almost see-through. Before I could even ask him what was wrong, he stood up so fast his chair almost fell over. He clutched his stomach like he was about to be sick and ran up the stairs, heading down the hallway toward the bathroom. "Danny, what's going on?" I called after him. He didn't answer. A few seconds later, I heard it, a faint cracking sound from behind the bathroom door. Not like breaking plastic or stepping on something. It sounded like ice starting to split, or old wood under pressure. I walked up to the door and knocked lightly. I asked if he was okay. Silence. Then I pressed my ear against the door and heard another sharp snapping sound, like boards bending. Underneath that were low grunts and heavy, uneven breathing, like he was trying to hold in screams. If he hadn't been acting so afraid of the dark, I might have told myself it was just food poisoning or a bad stomachache from the junk we ate. But my instincts screamed that this was something else. Something was wrong. The doorbell started ringing over and over. Not just one polite ring, but a frantic repeated chime. My heart jumped. I ran upstairs and opened the front door. Kathleen stood there, gripping a coat in her hands like a lifeline. Her hair was messy, and her face was stretched tight with fear. She didn't ask to come in. She pushed past me the second the door opened. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "In the bathroom, but—" She didn't wait for me to finish my sentence. She rushed down the hall and started pounding on the bathroom door with her fist, her keys jangling in her pocket. "Danny, it's Mom. Open the door right now," she shouted. Her voice was full of panic. After a few seconds, the door opened just a crack. Through the gap, I thought I saw something that made my skin crawl, an arm that didn't look like normal skin. It looked smooth and shiny, like varnished wood. Before I could get a better look, Kathleen moved in front of me, blocking my view completely, as she stepped inside and shut the door behind her. I heard her whispering to him, her voice shaky but comforting. After a short while, the door opened again. Danny stepped out, but he kept his head down. Kathleen helped him put on the coat she had brought, wrapping it tight around him, as if she was trying to hide him from the world. She turned to me and said that Danny wasn't allowed to come over anymore. No more projects, no more hanging out, no real explanation, just that. Then, she guided him out of the house. They left the front door open as they hurried to the car, like they were too focused on leaving to care about anything else. That was the last time he was ever inside my house. Back then, I didn't understand what I had just seen. It felt like one uncomfortable, weird moment we'd someday joke about. Now I know it was the first clear sign that something was deeply, terribly wrong. It was one piece of a much bigger puzzle, but I didn't recognize it then. If I had known that night would be the last time Danny really felt like my friend, I would have said more. I would have done more. But I thought we had time. He didn't come to school the next day, or the next. The days kept passing, and his seat stayed empty. The texts I sent remained on delivered and never turned to read. Every time I called his house, whoever picked up told me he was resting and couldn't talk. Days became weeks. After a while, nobody answered my calls at all. Finally, after about a month of this, something inside me snapped. I couldn't just sit around and let him drift out of my life a second time. I went to a few of my teachers and asked if I could drop off Danny's homework, since we were still listed as partners or classmates in some of the assignments. They agreed. That gave me the excuse I needed. I rode my bike over to his house, clutching the stack of papers. When I walked onto the porch, I thought I heard a faint scream from somewhere inside the house. It sounded distant and muffled, like someone yelling through a wall or from another floor. I told myself Danny was probably watching a horror movie. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I rang again. Still nothing. The noise inside grew louder, like something between a scream and a cry. "Danny!" I shouted, trying the door handle without really expecting it to move. It turned easily. I stepped inside. The living room looked like people had left in a rush and never come back. There were plates with half-eaten food still sitting out. The TV was on, but muted, flashing images across the room. Crumbs littered the floor. Envelopes and letters were scattered across the kitchen counters, like someone had given up opening them. I placed his homework on the kitchen table, then started looking around, calling his name softly. No answer. There was only one area of the house I hadn't checked yet: the basement. When I opened the basement door, a strong, bitter smell hit me. It burned the back of my throat and made my eyes water. It took me a second to recognize it, but then it clicked. Gasoline. The stairs were damp under my feet. When I looked down, the wood shimmered with rainbow streaks like the surface of a puddle covered in oil. Every step I took squeaked and squelched. I gripped the railing tightly, careful not to slip. Halfway down, I heard a sound, a screech that quickly turned into a scared whimper. "Danny?" I called into the darkness. I hurried the rest of the way down and slapped my hand along the wall until I found the light switch. When the basement lights flicked on, the whole room came into view. The space was long and rectangular. The stairs came down near one wall, giving me a clear angle into most of the room. The floor was dotted with bags of blood. Some were still full, dark red and heavy looking. Others were empty, curled and collapsed, as if they had been drained completely. Shelves and old furniture lined the walls, all of it stained and slick with gasoline, just like the stairs. To my right was a cluttered workbench covered in tools, jars, and scrap. To my left was an old sink and a washing machine. In the middle of the concrete floor stood a wooden frame, maybe 10 feet away from the base of the stairs. Thick ropes held something to it. I noticed where the wood had been reinforced, as if it had broken before and someone had gone back to fix it. Then I saw what was tied inside it. It was Danny. He looked terrible. His skin was covered in dark purple and green bruises and welts that looked painful, even from where I stood. His clothes hung loosely on him, like he had lost a lot of weight in a very short time. His hair had fallen into his face, but not enough to hide his eyes completely. They were sunken and unfocused, staring past me like he was barely awake. "Dude," I whispered. The gasoline squished under my shoes as I walked closer, my mind racing. "Danny?" He blinked slowly, like he had just woken up. A weak groan slipped out of his dry, cracked lips. He turned his head toward me with effort, as if the simple motion hurt. "You need to leave," he said. His voice sounded rough and raw, like he'd been screaming for hours. "You shouldn't be here." "What are they doing to you?" I asked, stepping closer. He flinched away like he was afraid I might touch him. "Don't worry. I'm going to get you out of here. I promise." Don't touch anything," he said. They're trying to help." "Help?" I snapped, unable to hold my anger back. "They have you tied up in their basement. You look like you're starving. How is this helping? Danny, what is going on?" He squeezed his eyes shut. His arms shook as he wrapped them around himself, holding his ribs as if they might fall apart. The fear on his face cut through my anger. "Leave, while you still can," he whispered. "Please." Before I could say anything else, I heard fast, heavy footsteps above us. It sounded like someone was running across the floor. Danny's breathing changed, each inhale sharp and wet, his chest rattling with panic. I reached out and told him it was okay, that I wasn't going to let anyone hurt him. The basement door slammed open so hard I felt the vibration. Neil rushed down the stairs, almost slipping in the gasoline. As soon as he reached the bottom, he stepped between Danny and me, blocking my path to the frame. Kathleen followed close behind, but stayed on the last step, as if crossing the final bit of distance was too much for her. Neil stared at Danny like he had been shot. His eyes were full of pain and terror. "You shouldn't be here," he shouted at me, grabbing my arm and pulling me away from Danny. "You're abusing him," I yelled back. "Look at him. He's hurt, he's tied up, and you've got gasoline everywhere. Are you planning to burn this whole place down?" Kathleen gripped the railing so hard, her knuckles turned white. Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "You don't understand," she said. "Please, you have to get away from him." "I understand enough," I said, pulling free from Neil's grip and stepping between them and Danny. "I'm going to call the police." "No!" Kathleen screamed. "No, you can't. You don't know what you're doing." "He's scared of you," I shouted, not sure which of them I meant. My voice echoed off the basement walls. Before any of us could say another word, a loud crack rang through the room, sharp and terrible. Kathleen's eyes went wide as she whispered, "Neil, it's starting." I turned around. Danny had curled into a tight ball, his knees pulled to his chest. His spine bulged upward under his shirt, pushing against his skin, like something was trying to force its way out. I was close enough to hear every sound that followed. Neil and Kathleen stayed wedged behind me, at the base of the stairs. Neil's breathing turned rough and uneven. He couldn't look away from Danny's back. He punched the floor with his fists, hard enough to send dust raining down from the ceiling. I watched in horror as Danny whimpered, his shoulder blades straining against his skin, pressing so hard they looked like they might tear through. A sound came out of his throat, a howl that seemed stuck between a human scream and an animal's roar. His fingers twisted at angles that should have been impossible for any bones to bend. I saw both Neil and Kathleen flinch as if they had seen it before and still weren't used to it. Dark veins spread under Danny's skin, like thick lines of old tree sap. Tears slid down his cheeks as his skin started to ripple and move in ways skin should never move. Then I heard it, the awful tearing sound as his flesh split. The noise was so loud I felt it in my feet. I stumbled back as his skin ripped open along his back and shoulders. Beneath it, I saw something that made me feel like the entire world had tilted sideways. Wood. Polished dark wood, like boards taken from a fancy piece of furniture, shone under the torn skin. The panels shifted and slid into place, overlapping like armor. The cracks of his bones and the grinding of whatever was happening inside him almost drowned out his voice. "Please," Danny screamed. "Not in front of him. I don't want him to see me like this." He tried to say more, but only one more word came out clearly. "Mom." After that, his voice broke into a harsh, guttural sound. It didn't sound human anymore. His neck snapped to the side with a loud crack that made Kathleen flinch and cover her mouth. Then, his body went still. His chest stopped rising. For a moment, it looked like he had died again. I could barely stand. My knees shook so badly I had to lean against the wall. Kathleen backed away until she hit the concrete. In her hand slid down the rough surface as she whispered, "Not again. Please, not again." Neil reached out toward Danny, then pulled his hand back quickly as Danny's jaw suddenly shifted sideways out of place. Slowly, the jaw snapped back with a wet popping sound. The ropes around the frame creaked as his body grew taller, heavier, stronger. I heard something inside him groan, like wood under pressure. The gasoline on the floor rippled as he thrashed and jerked. His eyes, which moments ago had looked like Danny's, locked onto mine. Then his pupils swelled until they swallowed the color of his irises and turned into two black, shiny pits. His gums tore as rows of sharp, uneven teeth pushed forward, lengthening and rearranging inside his mouth at a terrifying speed. His fingernails darkened and broke, reshaping themselves into jagged spikes that looked like sharpened sticks. Kathleen pressed herself against the wall and shouted at me to move away from him. Neil stepped in front of me, trying to block my view, but it was too late. I had already seen too much. Kathleen grabbed his arm, her fingers so tight they looked like they might bruise him. Her eyes were full of a tired, endless fear. "What did you do to him?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Kathleen answered in a flat, distant tone, like she was repeating a line she hated. "A vessel of flesh and wood for the soul, and a life for a life to keep it whole." She spoke like it was a phrase she had heard over and over again. Something burned into her mind. She said they had met someone, a craftsman, who had promised to help after Danny died. Neil broke down and admitted that the hunting trip hadn't gone the way he told the police. He said he had been cleaning the gun when Danny surprised him. His finger had pulled the trigger by reflex. Danny had died in the woods. He and Kathleen had gone into panic and guilt. They were desperate, and in their desperation, they found someone who said Danny could be brought back. This craftsman had carved a ventriloquist doll in Danny's image from the bark of the trees in the woods where he died. There was a ritual. It demanded a life in exchange for a life. They had refused to go through with that part, but the ritual had already started. It could not be undone. So, Danny returned, but not fully. He was himself during the day. At night, he turned into the thing tied to the wooden frame. "There is no cure," Kathleen said softly. We've tried to keep him contained, but he's getting stronger. It's getting harder to stop him." Neil admitted that the only thing Danny could take in now was blood. Solid food made him sick. To feed him, Neil had been stealing blood bags from the hospital where he worked, and even from blood drives, including the one my parents attended that night. Even that was not enough anymore. Danny's hunger was growing. Neil pulled me into a hug, sobbing into my shirt. "We didn't know. God, we didn't know," he repeated. The words "Danny died" echoed in my head. My mind refused to accept it, but my heart knew it was true. My best friend had died once. Now he was trapped in a body that wasn't really his, chained to a nightmare. None of us understood. When I looked back at him, I saw the monster. But inside those black eyes, and I thought I saw something else too, a small, familiar piece of the boy I used to know. "Help me," he rumbled. The voice was deep and harsh, but beneath it for a moment I could hear Danny. My Danny, the kid who made blanket forts with me, the one who pretended our bikes were spaceships, the friend I had shared all my secrets with. Something inside me broke. I knew I shouldn't do it. I knew there was a reason he was tied up, that he was dangerous. But the part of me that loved my friend was louder than the part of me that was afraid. I rushed to him. My hands shook as I clawed at the ropes holding him. Threads snapped one by one. "No!" Neil shouted, lunging toward me. "Don't free him!" But I was faster. The final rope frayed and gave way just as Neil reached my shoulder. Danny's head turned in our direction. His mouth opened wide in a way no human jaw could. Before I could move, his arm swung out, hard and fast. It hit me like I'd been tackled by someone twice my size. I flew backward and slammed into the workbench. Tools and jars clattered to the floor, tinkling and ringing as they bounced in the gasoline. Pain spread across my back and shoulders. I didn't have time to react before Danny was on top of me. His breath smelled like sawdust and something rotten. His claws scraped down my forearm, tearing the skin. Warm blood flowed out, mixing with the gasoline on the floor. I screamed and tried to push him away, but his strength was unnatural. For a moment, I thought he was going to tear my arm right off. Neil grabbed Danny from the side, pulling on his left arm, trying to yank him away from me. Instead, Danny turned on him. He grabbed Neil around the torso, as if he weighed nothing, and threw him across the room. Neil crashed into a bookcase. Wood shattered around him, and more gasoline dripped from the ceiling. Danny moved quickly, his steps heavy and clumsy, but powerful. He crossed the space between them in 2 or 3 strides. Kathleen grabbed one of the blood bags and waved it in the air desperately, screaming Danny's name. He turned toward her. Each step he took made a dull, heavy sound on the floor. Thud, thud, thud. His limbs jerked as if pulled by invisible strings. He lunged. His teeth sank into her hand, splitting skin and flesh. She dropped to the ground as blood spread under her. "Run!" Neil shouted at me. his voice raw. "Go, now!" He pulled a small matchbook from his pocket. When I saw it, and remembered the gasoline everywhere, I understood what he was about to do. I stumbled toward the stairs, my injured arm burning, my legs shaking so hard I almost fell. Behind me, I heard the small sound of a match being struck. I glanced back. The tiny flame danced in front of Danny's black eyes for a second. Then Neil threw it at the floor. The fire caught instantly. With a loud whoosh, the gasoline ignited, and the flames raced across the floor, up the walls, and toward the ceiling. Heat hit me like a solid wave. The smell of burning wood and flesh filled the air. Danny shrieked, a horrible broken sound. Kathleen crawled toward him, sobbing his name over and over as the fire swallowed her. Neil stood in the middle of it all as the flames climbed his body. He didn't move. He had made his choice. I covered my mouth and ran up the stairs as fast as I could, using the wall for balance. Smoke chased me, rolling along the ceiling. I burst into the kitchen and stumbled toward the front door. I barely made it outside before heat and sound exploded behind me. The windows shattered outward, sending shards of glass raining across the lawn like sharp, glittering rain. I fell onto the grass. The cold blades pressed against my skin. Blood dripped from my arm. I coughed until my chest felt like it was tearing, trying to get the taste of smoke out of my throat. From where I lay, I could see the basement window. Behind it, I saw Danny's burning shape thrashing in the flames. His silhouette flickered and twisted, then started to break apart. Glass kept popping and cracking. Smoke rolled across the yard in heavy black waves. I forced myself to stand and ran home, my whole body trembling. Inside my house, I grabbed the phone with shaking hands. I almost dropped it twice before I managed to dial 911. I told the operator about the fire. I did not tell them about the basement. I couldn't. I knew how it would sound. After I hung up, I heard one last scream tear through the night. It was Danny's, or what was left of him. The sound stretched on, then died out under the roar of the fire. Later, when I walked outside again, the fire had become smaller. Flames no longer shot into the sky. Red embers glowed in the ruins. Black ash floated in the air. Where Danny's house had stood was now just a charred crater. Neighbors stood in clusters on their lawns, whispering and pointing, their faces pale from the glow and the shock. Someone asked if I needed water. Another person asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. My mind felt far away. My eyes were locked on the remains of the house. I heard sirens in the distance. They grew louder and louder until fire trucks and ambulances crowded the street. The next thing I clearly remember is sitting in the back of an ambulance with an oxygen mask over my face. A bright light flashed in my eyes as an EMT checked me for smoke inhalation. Someone wrapped my arm with gauze. One of the paramedics asked me where I had been when the fire started. I barely heard the question over the siren. I told a lie. I said I had just been walking by, that I noticed the fire and went to call for help. Right after that, everything tilted and went dark. In the days that followed, the news stations ran stories about the fire. The official cause was said to be faulty wiring, electrical failure, an accident. There was no mention of gasoline on the stairs, no talk about strange wooden bodies or stolen blood bags. The truth, the real truth, was nowhere to be seen. I didn't tell them everything. I couldn't. If I had told the police that my best friend had turned into a wooden monster that fed on blood, they would have thought I was insane. Maybe they would have locked me away for my own good. Maybe they would have thought I had something to do with what happened. The police never found any bodies, no remains, no clear evidence. Danny and his parents were officially declared missing, and people in town came up with their own stories to explain it. Some said the pressure of what happened had made them snap and run away. Others said they had planned the fire to fake their own deaths. No one had any real proof, just guesses. Those guesses might be enough for everyone else, but not for me. I know what I saw in that basement. I know what was tied to that wooden frame. I know what burned, and I know what didn't. What scares me most is not just what I saw, but what I set free. I keep thinking about that moment when I pulled off the last rope and saw the human part of Danny shine through for 1 second. I hear his rough voice saying, "Help me." And I don't know if I did help him or if I doomed us all. I'm stuck in the middle now. If I tell the truth, if I go to the police and say everything out loud, I'll destroy whatever is left of Danny's memory. People will see him as a monster, not as the kid he used to be. They will think I'm either lying or crazy. But if I say nothing, I let something dangerous move around unchecked. What do I even say? My friend died twice, once in the woods and once in a fire, but he's still out there made of wood and teeth and hunger. Even I can barely believe it, and I was there. That's why I am here, writing this out and sharing it with strangers online. I don't expect anyone to save me. I don't even know if anyone can. But I need someone to hear it. I need someone to at least understand why I'm so afraid. Because every night since the fire, I've heard something outside my window. At first it was just small sounds, the creak of something heavy moving, the soft scrape of wood against the side of the house. Then came the tapping. 3 quick taps against the glass. Always 3. Tap, tap, tap. I know that pattern. He used to tap on my window like that when we were kids, and he wanted me to sneak out. I've memorized it. It's like a signature. I don't look anymore. I lie in bed, frozen. He's staring at the ceiling while my heart beats too fast. Sometimes I feel his presence on the other side of the glass. I see his burned wooden outline in my mind. I know that if I get up and pull the curtain aside, I won't see my friend's face. I'll see the thing I unleashed. So I stay in bed, eyes open in the dark, listening to the quiet creak of his joints and the gentle tapping that means he's still out there, waiting. Story 5. This happened when I was still in school. I was in the 6th grade, and our parents put money together for a class camping trip. Our homeroom teacher and her husband agreed to organize it and take us there. We lived in a small town back then, so going to the forest was not a big problem. Our parents said they wanted us to connect with nature. Many of them liked to tell stories from their childhood about how they used to play outside until their own parents had to drag them back home. We liked the idea too. Honestly, we were happy to go anywhere if it meant skipping classes for a day. Friday came, the day we were supposed to leave. Everyone in our class showed up, except for 2 kids who were often sick. People said they probably had allergies or something like that, so nobody was too surprised they stayed home. We gathered outside the school, where our teacher and her husband were already waiting for us. Before we left, They gave us 30 minutes to buy anything we had forgotten. Some of us went to the nearby shops, including me, while others stayed and waited. My parents had already packed most of what I needed, but I wanted to buy something sweet for myself. After about 15 minutes, everyone had returned, and our teachers led us toward the forest. We planned to stay overnight, and every one of us had brought a tent. Our parents had been very practical and had bought us single-person tents, so everyone was supposed to sleep alone, even though many of us would have preferred to share. After about half an hour of walking along a dirt path, we reached the woods and started looking for a good place to set up camp. You can't really set up tents deep between the trees, where it's too crowded to see anything clearly. But a clearing is perfect. You get open space to see what is going on, while the forest still surrounds you. Eventually, we found a clearing that seemed just right, and we started pitching our tents there. That evening was actually fun. We felt free. Some of us picked berries at the edge of the woods. Others explored a bit deeper among the trees, staying within sight of the camp. A few kids went fishing, and a couple even swam in the lake nearby, in spite of the cold water. The adults watched us and called out warnings now and then, but overall, they seemed relaxed. Later, when it got dark, we all returned to our tents and went to sleep, tired but happy. Sometime around midnight, I woke up because I needed to pee. I left my tent quietly, trying not to step on anything loud, and walked a short distance away. After I finished, I turned around to go back, and that was when I saw it. There was a bear walking between the tents. It was huge. Its fur looked dark and thick, and drool hung from its mouth. Its eyes shone in the dim light with a hungry sort of focus. I had never seen a bear in real life before, and seeing one that close, near the people I knew, froze me completely. My heart started beating so fast, I felt sick. The bear was near the tents where some of the other kids were sleeping. I didn't know what to do. I was terrified. I thought that if I screamed, everyone would wake up and panic, and the bear might attack all of us. But if I did nothing, it might still attack someone anyway. I felt trapped between two terrible choices, and then my foot hit something soft on the ground, and I saw a piece of meat lying there, probably dropped by someone earlier when we were roasting shashlik. Without thinking too much, I grabbed the meat and threw it as far as I could away from the tents. The bear immediately turned and went after it. I felt a tiny bit of hope, but I knew it would only distract the bear for a few seconds. At that moment, one of my classmates woke up and came out of her tent. She saw the bear clearly and screamed. It was the kind of scream that came from pure terror, and it shook the whole camp awake. The bear, startled and angry, lunged at her. It attacked her so violently that I could hardly watch. She was mauled right in front of us, and it was horrible. People started screaming and running in all directions. The camp turned into chaos. Some tried to hide. Others ran for the trees. The bear moved from one person to another. I am sure it killed at least 2 of them. I ran. I know it sounds cowardly and selfish, and I still feel guilty about it. But in that moment, I was just a kid, faced with something I didn't understand. All I could think about was staying alive. I sometimes ask myself if I could have done anything different, but honestly, I don't know. The forest felt endless. I have always had a bad sense of direction, and on top of that, it was dark and confusing. The trees all looked the same, and I could barely see the ground under my feet. I ran until my legs hurt, and my lungs burned. I stumbled over roots and stones, and I had no idea where I was going. Then, suddenly, I bumped into something solid. It was a wall. I had run straight into a building hidden in the forest. I still do not know how I found it. Maybe I was just blindly lucky, or maybe something led me there. Either way, there it was, a house standing alone in the woods. I pushed the door and found it unlocked. I rushed inside, shut it behind me, and piled whatever I could find in front of it to block it. A chair, a small table, some boxes. My hands were shaking so much that it took longer than it should have. As I looked around the room, I found a flashlight lying on a shelf. I turned it on and started shining it around. That was when I noticed the signs on the walls. There were many symbols, all painted or carved. Among them were pentagrams and strange markings that looked like they came from some ritual or dark practice. It hit me that I might have walked into a place used by some kind of cult. My fear changed shape. I was safe from the bear for the moment, but now I was trapped in a place that felt even more wrong. I didn't dare stay long. I took the flashlight and some food that was still there, then moved everything away from the door and slipped back outside. I prayed quietly that I wouldn't meet whoever had been using that house. I never saw any cult members, but I did meet something else, something I wish I had never seen. The forest around me started to feel different. The darkness seemed heavier and thicker, like I was walking deeper into a place that did not belong to the normal world. The trees felt closer, the silence more unnatural. While I was moving through this strange gloom, I heard a scream. It was sharp, painful, and human. Instinct made me run toward the sound. I came into a small clearing and saw a sight that almost broke my mind. A tall, thin creature, shaped roughly like a person, was standing over a man and using long, sharp claws to skin him alive. The skin was being peeled away in strips. The man's screams filled the air. I froze. The flashlight slipped from my hand and hit the ground with a dull sound. The creature's head turned toward me, but it did not turn like a normal person's head. It twisted halfway, almost like it had too many joints in its neck. Its eyes were empty, dark holes, and its mouth stretched into a wide smile that looked painted on its face, as if someone had drawn it, rather than it being natural. It raised one arm and waved at me, like it was greeting an old friend. My body finally reacted. I grabbed the flashlight again and ran as fast as I could. The creature came after me. I don't know how long I ran. My lungs hurt. My legs felt like they were made of lead, and my vision blurred with tears. Eventually, my strength ran out, and I collapsed. I fell into some bushes and barely had the energy to move. Somewhere in the middle of the panic, I realized that the bushes hid me pretty well. I lay completely still, crying silently and praying that the creature would not find me. I heard it walking nearby. It moved slowly, almost lazily, like a predator that had all the time in the world. It felt like it was playing a game of hide and seek with me. For a short time, it seemed that I had escaped its notice. I could see its shape moving between the trees, searching but not quite reaching me. I didn't dare breathe too loudly. I thought maybe God had heard my prayers. But the hope didn't last. The creature came closer again. It started rummaging through the bushes where it had last seen me, pushing branches aside, sniffing the air, listening for any sound. Its bones creaked with every move, and it made low groans that sounded tired. like its own body heard it. As it moved, I could see its shape more clearly. Its ribs stuck out through its skin like branches poking through thin fabric. These bones looked wrong, twisted and exposed, as if they did not belong inside a living body. But somehow, they didn't stop it from moving, even though it walked in a strange, slow way. Maybe the damage to its body explained why it moved like that. Eventually, it found me. It reached into the bushes and pulled me out. I expected it to kill me right away. I imagined claws tearing me apart, like it had done to the man in the clearing. But instead, it chose something worse. Before it dragged me away, I noticed something else. There were gills on its neck, like a fish, and they were bleeding heavily. The blood that flowed from them was not red. It was green. I thought for a moment that maybe it was dying or suffocating, but it didn't slow down. It dragged me into a cave hidden among the rocks. Inside, it sat me down somewhere and made sure I could not easily move. Then the real nightmare began. It kept going into the forest and bringing back animals. It skinned them, tore them apart, and ate them right in front of me. It brought back all kinds of animals, small ones like squirrels and bigger ones like a wolf. It watched me while it ate, as if my horror was part of what it enjoyed. It laughed sometimes, or at least it made a sound like laughter. Its skeleton seemed to vibrate, and that vibration made a harsh rattling noise. It sounded like a disgusting cross between laughter and something crying. The more it did this, the more my mind started to break. Then it brought a person. He looked like a lost mushroom picker, someone who had wandered too far into the forest. The creature skinned him the same way it had skinned the animals. It took out his organs and, as if to make fun of me or to mark me, it hung his intestines around my neck like a necklace. My whole body shook, but I could not scream. I was frozen with fear and shock. All I could do was cry and pray that it would not do the same thing to me. The green blood from its gills dripped onto the cave floor. It gave off a strange, sick smell that made me feel even more nauseous. I felt like I might faint, but I stayed awake, forced to watch every horrible moment. The creature rubbed its head against my shoulder, like an animal showing affection or claiming something as its own. I didn't know if it was petting me or marking me. Its bones vibrated while it did this, and that same awful rattling sound filled the air again. When it lifted its head, I noticed something new. A black, oily liquid started to gather in its eyes. It did not fall like normal tears. Instead, it built up around the pupils and then dripped out in thick drops. Those drops fell on my jacket and stained it. I don't know if it was crying, marking me, or doing something else completely. Since it had no visible genitals, I wondered if this was its way of claiming me as its territory. At some point, morning came. Light from the outside world leaked faintly into the cave, and the creature got up and walked deeper into the darkness, leaving me where I was. It did not bother to tie me more securely. It did not speak or make any sign. It just left, as if it had grown bored of me. I waited for a long time. When I was sure it was far away, I took off the intestines and threw them as far as I could into the cave. Then I slowly crawled and stumbled out. I barely had the strength, but fear pushed me forward. I remembered something from a survival class at school. If you find a river and follow it, it will often lead you to a road, a town, or at least a way out. I found a stream and walked along its bank. I washed myself there, scrubbing my skin again and again, trying to remove any trace of blood and filth. It didn't help much in my mind. I still felt dirty, but I kept moving. When I finally reached the edge of the forest and made it back to people, the police were called. They asked a few questions about the bear attack, but not many. My parents were told that I had survived a terrible incident with a bear. They accepted that explanation. They sent me to a psychologist afterward, hoping it would help me heal. Nobody, neither my parents nor the psychologist, knows what really happened after the bear showed up. They only know the first half of the horror. The psychologist said I had PTSD from the bear attack. Maybe he is partly right, but the bear is not the main reason I can't sleep at night. I now sleep with the light on because I am afraid of what might be watching me in the dark. When I shower, I scrub myself so hard trying to wash off blood that is no longer there. The only place I can talk about all of this honestly is on the internet, because most people would just think I'm telling a scary story for fun. Later, on August 9th, 2025, I learned more about that house I had found in the forest. It turns out, it originally belonged to a forest ranger who went missing 12 years earlier. After he disappeared, some cult members took over the place. They were not the kind who kidnapped people from town. They mostly stayed to themselves and performed rituals that were tied to nature and its power. But in those woods back in the 1970s, bodies had been found. Those victims had the same kind of painted-on smile that the creature had, and they were killed in similar brutal ways to the man I saw skinned in front of me. When I found this out, I had already moved away to another city. I don't want to say where I am now. I want to stay anonymous. On August 13th, 2025, I wrote again because I could not stop thinking about the creature. I asked people if they thought it could be something from another world, maybe from hell, maybe from somewhere in space. The ribs sticking out of its body, the bleeding gills on its neck, the green blood. No creature from our world should be able to live like that. It looked like something that was not meant to exist here, yet somehow did. On August 14th, 2025, I admitted something else. Every night I wake up with the feeling that someone is watching me. I go to the window and sometimes I see eyes in the dark and that same painted smile outside, just for a moment before it fades. One thought keeps eating at me. That laughter, that rattling sound from its bones, was it mocking me? Or was it something like a child who is proud of its drawing and wants to show it to a parent? Maybe the creature was trying to befriend me in its own sick way, like when a cat brings its owner a dead bird, thinking it is a gift. Maybe all those animals, and even the mushroom picker it killed, were presented as proof that it could hunt. Maybe hanging those intestines around my neck was, in its mind, a kind of present. Look, this is for you. This idea haunts me. I don't know if it was torturing me or trying to form some twisted bond. It did not kill me after all. Why not? Why did it kill the man and maybe the forest ranger, but leave me alive? Maybe it is a creature that ended up in our world by accident. Or maybe it is something like the devil made flesh, and its real method of killing me was not physical, but mental, slowly tearing apart my sanity. Maybe it is still waiting for me somewhere. Maybe it has forgotten me. Or maybe it is searching for me like a child who has lost a favorite toy and wants it back so it can finally break it. On August 15th, 2025, I remembered one more detail. The marks it left on my skin, 2 of them, did not fade. They sank into my flesh and became permanent spots. They looked like small patches of tanned, darker skin. I tried to get rid of them, even scratched at them, but nothing changed. They are always there, like a brand. They make me feel like I belong to that creature and to no one else. I stopped looking for a girlfriend. It feels like that thing is the only one truly interested in me, in some sick and twisted way. On September 23rd, 2025, another voice appeared on the page. And this time, it was my mother writing. She told everyone that I had hanged myself. She said she did not know for sure whether the monster I had described was real, or if my mind had created some of it after the bear attack as a way to process fear and trauma. She thanked the people who had supported me online. She wrote that losing me was an irreparable wound for her and my father, because I was their only child. She said I was 25 and had never fully recovered from what happened in that forest. She ended by praying that my soul would rest in a better world than this one. Then, on September 26, 2025, one more person wrote, "My friend." He said he knew I had been running this page, and now the task of updating it had passed to him. He explained that something strange had been happening at my grave. Someone had been leaving mutilated animal corpses there. The cemetery guard claimed he had seen a pale creature doing it at night, but the townspeople just laughed and said he was drunk or imagining things. Most people think it is the cultists or a group of teenagers playing a cruel prank. But my friend had read everything I wrote. He had seen my notes and records in real life, the ones I had never shared publicly. Because of that, he thinks maybe the guard is telling the truth. Every day, new dead animals appear by my grave, and on the gravestone, a circle is drawn with eyes and a smiling mouth inside, like a crude emoji. My friend said he would write again if he discovered more. For now, that is all he knows. He ended his message by wishing everyone good luck. I don't know if anyone else reading this will ever fully believe any of it, or if they will just shrug it off as a creepy story. But somewhere out there, a creature with empty eyes, a painted-on smile, green blood, and bleeding gills remembers me. And every mark on my body, every memory in my mind, and every animal left by my grave feels like proof that, to it, I was never just a victim. I was something it chose,